The first thing Jonah Hale noticed was the smell. Not the usual old carpet smell banks carried after business hours, and not the sharp electrical scent of overheated wiring. This was paper smoke, oily and bitter, drifting out of the service alley behind Camden First Agricultural Bank at a little after dawn. Jonah had come into town early to meet his daughter, Elise, for breakfast before she drove back to Little Rock. Instead, he parked beside the alley, stepped out of his truck, and saw a maintenance barrel near the loading dock still breathing a thin ribbon of gray into the cold air. Inside the barrel were blackened metal clips, half-burned folders, and the curled corner of a cover sheet carrying his own name. Jonah did not speak for several seconds. Then he reached into the truck, grabbed the tire iron he kept behind the seat, and hooked the smoking paper remains out onto the pavement one piece at a time. At the top of the pile lay part of an account summary, charred along the edge but still legible across the middle. Hale, Jonah R., Legacy Restructure. Hold pending review. Jonah stared at it until Elise pulled into the alley and stepped out. She followed his eyes to the ground and went completely still. "Dad," she said, "why would your file be in a burn barrel?" Jonah answered the only way he could. Because somebody thought fire was faster than explanation. Jonah Hale had been fighting Camden First for 11 months. The bank claimed he was in default on a farm note tied to 2 hay fields, a machine shed, and a timber strip his father had never wanted mortgaged in the first place. Jonah insisted the balance was wrong. Every time the bank sent a statement, the number changed. Fees appeared, vanished, and returned under new labels. Insurance proceeds from storm damage were acknowledged in letters but never fully reflected in the principal line. Jonah was not a man who loved files. He loved fences that held, calves that stood, and rain that came in the night without turning mean. But he had learned enough over the previous year to keep copies of everything. His daughter Elise had taught him that. Elise Hale was 34, sharp-eyed, patient, and better with records than most people were with conversation. She worked in health system compliance, the kind of field that trained a person to distrust unexplained gaps. Months earlier, after the first ugly letter from Camden First, she had driven down to Jonah's place, sat at the dining table, and built him a document binder from scratch. Statements in one section. Checks in another. Insurance records behind those. Every phone call logged by date, time, and name. Then, because she distrusted small-town institutions even more than Jonah did, she scanned everything. Every letter. Every ledger. Every signed page. She saved the scans on an encrypted drive, then uploaded a mirrored archive to a secure cloud folder under a boring label no one would ever search for, Seed Tax Receipts. Jonah had laughed at the name. Elise had said, "Laugh all you want. Backup wins arguments." After finding the burned pages, Elise did not call the local branch first. She did not call the sheriff. She did not storm the lobby. She took pictures. Every angle. Every page fragment. Every ash mark on the concrete. Every serial code still visible on the cover sheet. Then she bagged the readable pieces in clean freezer bags from the gas station next door and wrote the time on the outside with a marker from her purse. Only after that did she ask her father to walk her through the most recent dispute. Jonah explained that Camden First had denied the existence of a 2003 workout agreement modifying his payment schedule after a tornado year. He also explained that 2 weeks earlier he had formally requested the original servicing file through counsel, and yesterday the bank's attorney had replied that portions of the legacy file could not be located. Elise looked at the burned summary again. Legacy restructure. Hold pending review. That wording matters, she said. It means the missing file wasn't random paper. It was exactly the category they said they couldn't find. By 8:30 she had pulled the digital archive up on her laptop at the diner across the road. There it was. The 2003 workout agreement. The amended payment schedule. The storm insurance application. the bank letter acknowledging deferred status. And, most importantly, a scanned image of an internal transmittal sheet Jonah had almost thrown away years ago because it looked unimportant. Route to legacy servicing. Do not accelerate without document reconciliation. Elise read it once. Then again. Then she said, "Dad, they did not lose your file. They tried to make your file impossible to prove." Elise called a banking litigator in Little Rock named Nathan Voss, a man she knew through a prior compliance review. Nathan answered on the second ring, listened without interruption, and told her not to send anything by ordinary email. By noon he had the archived scans through a secure transfer portal. By 2 he had filed an emergency motion to halt foreclosure activity and compel preservation of all physical and digital records associated with Jonah Hale's account. He attached photographs of the burned fragments and copies of the scanned documents showing the bank's own legacy servicing instructions. The judge granted a temporary preservation order before the branch closed. That alone rattled Camden first. But Nathan did not stop there. He also forwarded the burn barrel photographs and file history concerns to state regulators and a federal banking complaint channel. He did it in the same tight, unsentimental language Elise liked best. Possible intentional destruction of responsive account materials following formal request. Supporting backup records attached. Camden first answered the next morning through outside counsel. The fire, they said, involved routine disposal of duplicate administrative waste. No customer records were intentionally destroyed. Any suggestion otherwise was inflammatory. Nathan sent back one page. If the burned records were duplicates, produce the originals referenced in the attached scans within 24 hours. They could not. The emergency hearing brought more people into the courtroom than anyone in Camden expected. Bank officers. Local press. 2 farmers with their own concerns. 3 lawyers for Camden first. Jonah, in his good coat. Elise, with a laptop, a binder, and the calm expression of someone who had already built the timeline twice. Nathan let the bank speak first. They talked about procedure, disposal bins, storage confusion, vendor transitions, and misunderstandings. They used every soft word institutions use when hard facts begin to gather in the corners. Then Nathan called Elise. She did not dramatize. She simply authenticated the backup archive. She explained when each file had been scanned, where each was stored, how hash values verified integrity, and why the archive predated the current dispute. She walked the court through the workout agreement the bank denied existed, the deferred status letter, the internal routing page, and the reconciliation warning. Then she displayed the photograph of the charred fragment found behind the bank. Same account name. Same legacy classification. Same phrase, hold pending review. The judge leaned forward. A mess. Hale, are you telling the court your father's backup archive contains documents the bank says it cannot locate, while burned fragments of that same file were found outside the branch one day after a formal request? Elise answered, "Yes, Your Honor. That is exactly what I am saying." Something changed in the room right there. The bank's lead attorney stopped sounding confident. One of the officers at counsel table quit taking notes. Jonah looked at his daughter with the kind of quiet pride men carry when words would only reduce the size of the moment. The court entered an immediate injunction. No foreclosure. No transfer. No destruction of any related materials. A forensic review would follow. Forensic review is a slow phrase for an ugly process. It means servers get copied. Deletion logs get read. Print histories get compared. People who thought no one would ever care about internal shortcuts discover that time-stamps are less forgiving than memory. Within 3 weeks, reviewers found that Camden First had migrated Jonah Hale's account through 3 servicing systems over 2 decades. Each migration created opportunities to flatten old modifications that made a loan less profitable to accelerate. In Jonah's case, the 2003 workout agreement and later storm-related deferments reduced the amount immediately collectible in foreclosure. Those protections also made his land harder to take cleanly. Internal emails showed branch staff asking headquarters whether legacy workout material had to be produced in response to counsel's request. One answer came back in a line that would have been unbelievable if it had not been preserved. Clear dead paper before records demand expands. No one wrote the word burn. They did not need to. The timing said enough. Regulators descended. The branch manager resigned. Camden first suspended 2 operations employees and placed its regional servicing director on leave. Outside counsel suddenly wanted peace. Jonah's land claim was corrected first. The workout agreement was restored to the official file. Storm credits were applied. Penalties were reversed. Default status was withdrawn. Then the bank talked settlement. Jonah did not pretend money fixed everything. It did not restore sleep lost over 11 months. It did not erase the sight of his own name half-burned in an alley barrel before sunrise. But it mattered that the bank paid. The final agreement totaled $2.4 million, including damages, legal fees, and corrective relief. More important to Jonah, Camden first had to record the account corrections formally, issue a written withdrawal of foreclosure claims, and preserve all legacy agricultural files under external oversight for a defined term. When people asked him later how he won, he never started with the lawyers. He started with Elise. She scanned everything, he would say. That's the whole story. Elise always rolled her eyes when he put it that simply. She would say the real story involved bad servicing practices, document suppression, and a court willing to act fast. Jonah would nod and then answer the same way every time. All true. But if my daughter hadn't made a backup, they would have burned the argument before I ever got to speak it. On the first warm Saturday after the settlement, Elise came back to the farm and helped Jonah build a new file cabinet into the pantry wall. Physical copies on one side. Fresh scans on the other. Cloud mirror updated. External drive labeled in black marker. Seed tax receipts. Jonah laughed again when he saw it. This time Elise laughed too. Then she slid the restored workout agreement into its folder and said, "Let them lose theirs. We've got ours." And that, more than the money, was what finally let Jonah sleep.